Welcome to episode 203 of the weekly Shared Security Show. And joining me are the combined Canadian and Floridian co-host team, Scott Wright and Kevin Johnson.
We're the co-host team. So what we decided before you joined was that you're the host, Scott's the co-host, and I'm the guest host.
Oh, is that how it works now?
Yeah, that's what we decided. I don't know.
Oh.
And by the way, did you bring your cherry bubbly?
I did.
Scott has his cherry bubbly. I have my cherry bubbly.
I am excluded from this. I'm sorry. I do not have cherry bubbly. I did not know that was a requirement for this episode, guys.
We did not know it either until we both picked it up and realized we had the same one.
I did not get the memo.
Wait, we have memos? I don't want memos.
We have email.
We do have email.
Yes. So awesome. Well, welcome back. By the way, I treat you both as equals. So that's why.
Please note, Scott, he said we were treated as equals. He did not include himself in that.
No, I'm definitely not equal to you guys. I'm a lower level. Well, hey, I did want to mention that our last episode, when we talked about TikTok listening to you, was actually one of our most popular episodes this year in terms of downloads, in terms of comments. We had if you on our YouTube channel. Why is that?
Because TikTok was listening, so it downloaded.
Yes, it was.
We were trending on TikTok.
We're finally trending. So that is a plug. If you have not listened to that episode, definitely check that out because it's. I won't say it's gone viral. What's that? Peer pressure?
Peer pressure. Other people have listened to it. So if you haven't, you better.
That's basically what I'm saying without you better, but please go listen to it. So let's start off with Scott. This was an article you sent over, and it kind of I have a personal, I don't say attachment to this particular technology, but Life360. Yeah. This is something that is very popular amongst actually teenagers. In fact, it was my teenage son that told me that, like, hey, Dad, we need to start using Life360 because my friends use it to kind of track our whereabouts. And I'm like, why is my kid asking me to install tracking software on his phone? This seems very
something's
strange.
Wrong here. You're in the wrong universe.
He's also reached out to NSO to get Pegasus installed.
Yeah.
Right. But so Life360, very popular. You could think of it as like Find My Friends, like on the Apple side. Google has their own thing. Snapchat even has a way that you can view where all your friends are at. But this is a very popular app. 33 million people worldwide are using it. And this article kind of sheds some light on how that location data from Life360 is making its way to data brokers.
Right. Yeah. We haven't talked much about data brokers.
No, not at all. No, there's not a single episode on data brokerage.
No, not at all.
On this podcast. But I thought it was a little bit eye-opening, at least for me, because I use the app. My whole family uses the app. I actually get some value out of it. It's one of the only location apps that you can actually see when someone's driving the actual speed of the car and how fast they're traveling. So.
And that explains why they collect such precise data.
Oh, it's very precise data. So the concern is obviously this data is going out to these data brokers, which then it goes out to other people that buy that data. In fact, some of the, I think there was one, wasn't it like the Department of Defense was buying some of this data, and some of these other organizations would be like, why are they buying?
I was thinking, why are hedge funds buying precise location data?
Maybe, yeah.
Well, that one actually makes sense to me, right? Because, and the reason I say that is, the hedge fund, a lot of times those types of purchases are for one of their companies or one of their investments, right? And it'll go through the hedge fund for a variety of reasons. But the other reason is you're going to want metadata or aggregated data about how many people are in that mall that you're looking at buying, or how many people drive by that retail location that you're looking at investing into. So the hedge funds made sense. I always laugh when you see the CDC bought it, the Department of Defense bought it. That's all public record, like that. And every time I see in a case like this where they're talking about, here's something we don't like, here's something that's tracking, and look, the government is involved. That to me is lazy reporting, because the reporter just went out and did a search on the SAM database of purchases, right? Here in the U.S. So that is all public record, and it's just very simple to say, here's scary stuff. But that kind of data, to me, I think that the part of this I have a problem with. I don't like people collecting this type of data. I don't like this type of data being out there. I know that it is, though. And I've also accepted the fact that, unlike Tom, my kids did not get me to install this, but we've installed other things like it, right?
Similar.
Like we have real-time location tracking on Google, on Android, for my daughters and my wife and I. And, we know that it's there. I'm not going to say surprised. What got me, what yelled out in this article, and in the others I've read about it, is how little of this is disclosed in Life360's.
That's right.
Privacy which is something we know Kevin would read in depth, because he always reads the privacy policies.
Everybody should read the privacy policies.
We talked about that last episode. Yeah.
They call out certain companies that buy the data, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, but our other companies are private." Okay, but like you're selling, man, I don't know.
They don't go into detail of where they say it. They sell your data, but they don't tell you where.
Yeah, and then of course you have no control over how it's used once they sell it.
No,
neither do they. Contrary to the comment in the article about, well, their contract forbids this. Yeah, you know what else their contract forbids?
Yeah. But it is something that I think a lot of people don't realize. We do talk about data brokers, but I think people don't realize how freely information flows once it's in that sort of network, right?
Yeah. It is ridiculous how much data about us is shared.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe, and I believe I've said this before on the show, I really believe that we are well past true privacy or any capability, and all of the efforts. I mean, I get it, right? But like things like GDPR, all it did, in my opinion, was get some really cool headlines about fines for social media companies, and it paid for a whole bunch of new industry to help you put a pop-up on your website that says you have cookies. That is the effectiveness of GDPR. And we're seeing the same thing with California's privacy law. I mean, every single one of these things just seems to drive us past the idea that we're past the point.
I think you're probably right, Kevin, but I don't think that's a reason to give up on trying to expose and discuss and look for better ways.
Yeah. No. I totally believe we should expose it and discuss it. I just don't believe we have any governmental or contractual way to fix it.
But I think that, to me, that goes back to something you said before, Kevin, was you thought the FTC has complete mandate to do all this stuff.
Yep, they do.
But they don't have the resources to do it.
I think it's beyond resources in this case. I agree with you. I've said it's the resource issue. I think it's beyond the resource issue because we have voluntarily turned away privacy. I am amazed at how many people yell about their privacy rights from their iPhone, or yell about their privacy rights on Instagram, or rant about them giving up privacy while on Twitter, right? Like I wasn't going to make this political, but I'm going to make it political. I think it's the same thing when you hear somebody say, "Oh my God, Congress sucks." Okay, well, who do you vote for? Oh, the incumbent. Well, then you're an idiot, right? Like we hear people complain about privacy as they are voluntarily giving up the privacy they have, and I'm not saying that makes it okay. I'm not saying that that removes responsibility from these companies. That's why I think we should discuss it. We should dig into it, because I personally, and I'll look at Tom here because he's the only person on the call that has acknowledged being a user of Life360. To me, this is reaching back out to Life360 and saying, WTF, dude? Like, what are you doing?
There is one thing about this that we didn't talk about is you actually can disable the sale of your location data in their privacy settings.
That's an important thing to know.
But a lot of people don't know that because, like Facebook has done for years and years and years, they bury these settings down, or they make them very difficult to find and locate. They're not going to just notify you like, hey, guess what? You've got these privacy settings. You can turn this data sharing off.
It's part of the business model. I mean,
yeah, it is. And keep in mind too, it limits some of the functionality as well by turning off that feature. Yeah. So you can change that, but
there's a concept developed actually by a Canadian named Ann Kavukian, Dr. Ann Kavukian, called Privacy by Design. You might have heard of the concept, right? And it's a simple concept, and one of those things is private by default, or privacy by default.
Yeah,
and that's an easy thing to say, but companies like Facebook would not be created today if everybody followed that, because their business model relies on privacy not being default.
That's right.
And I've said this before about my own life and usage of things. There are things that I have used that I've given up privacy on because the benefit the software gives me outweighs the privacy I'm concerned about. The example I've used a million times is the Waze application. When Waze first came out, very few people were using it in Northeast Florida. And so I leveraged it for mapping and directions and stuff like that, with the hope that more people would adopt it, so it would get better details.
Crowdsourced
data, and the reason I did it was because of how useful it was for me in places like LA, where it was very highly adopted very rapidly. And I saw the benefit.
Just one interesting thing I've learned from using Waze as well. I love the app, and I think it is good that it learns from people, but I don't like the fact that it kind of is very sticky. Once you start it, it's tracking you all the time until you physically tell it to shut off, or you swipe it to remove. And so that's just a tip for people. If you're using apps like Waze and you don't want to be tracked other than when you're using it, it's a good idea to completely shut it down.
Yeah, and check the permissions to only allow it to have access while it's active, right? That's a I'm going to say relatively newer permission.
Actually, I found that didn't work. Even selecting it only to be tracking when you're using it, and it's partly because unless you actually completely shut it down, it will still track you.
So it's like Microsoft Teams, that every single time you launch it, it starts that damn thing down the bottom of your screen.
Yeah. Interesting.
Lots of good stuff to talk about in that story. I just particularly the statement, that when they're faced with all the negative things that could be happening to people, but it's saved so many lives.
Yeah.
Think about the children. Think about children, guys. That's right.
All right. Enough on that.
Well, what does it mean to go off the grid? Well, for most of us that are constantly relying on our phones, tablets, and laptops, it means shutting them off and doing some other activity like enjoying nature or spending time with friends and family. Now, you're probably a lot like me and struggle with turning off or putting down that smartphone because we always feel the need to be constantly connected. Listen, it's hard to go off the grid, but the good news is that there are products that can help. So that's why I recommend using a silent Faraday bag, which can instantly block all wireless signals, quickly taking you off the grid and giving you back control of your wireless devices. Check out their full product line at slnt.com, and because you listen to this podcast, make sure you use discount code SHAREDSECURITY at checkout to receive 10% off your order.
You want your organization to be secure and compliant and to have a healthy culture, but your employees' lack of awareness makes you vulnerable to data theft, fraud, and compliance penalties. It's frustrating that the boring static training content that's being used today has failed to improve employees' ability to defend against cyber attacks. At ClickArmor, we know that without using gamification, it's extremely hard to get staff to understand how to avoid threats. Our gamified simulations and challenges have provided a 50% average improvement in thousands of employees' ability to spot phishing threats. Go to clickarmor.ca/shared security to get your free gamified phishing assessment for up to 500 employees. You'll see quickly how gamified simulations can help your team be more resilient and compliant and help avoid costly ransomware and fraud incidents. Let ClickArmor help you go from being an underappreciated, stressed out fall guy to being an innovative leader who's the catalyst for greater productivity in your organization.
Yeah. So the next story here, the NSO Group, who we'd love to talk about, they have now been caught hacking U.S. government officials now, which is kind of an escalation a bit, I would say. Because before it's been, activists and journalists and other dignitary, people that have been targeted. But this is the first time that 11 U.S. State Department employees were hacked. They were employees all located in Uganda, and some foreign service officers. So this is interesting development.
I am curious, and obviously we don't know, and I don't think we will know. I'm very curious to find out if they were targeted, or whether because there was something targeting, groups in Uganda, they were collateral damage. And I want to be very clear. I am not excusing this or saying it's okay in anybody, but I'm curious if NSO was actively going after those State Department employees. I lean toward believing yes. I've long said that we will find out that they went after U.S. citizens. I do not believe.
I think you said that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I've never believed the idea that they went, oh no.
Yeah, they will likely, I'm sure, claim plausible deniability, and that it might have been one of our customers that targeted it, but it wasn't us.
Well, they will definitely say that. But so this one was interesting to me, mainly because I want to hate on NSO as often as possible. So this one was. I think we're just going to see more and more stories of this, right? The more attention drawn to NSO, the more people are going to come back and say, "Oh wait, here's another group we found out they went after. Oh hey, here's another group they went after." Because not to be rude, but their business model was to enable people to go after specific groups, right? Like that's what they did and do. We should not be surprised to find out that there's another group that has been targeted by NSO. I think at one point it's going to be a sign of pride. I don't know the right word to say, well, I wasn't hacked by NSO. I'm thinking about making a T-shirt for myself that said I'm not important enough for NSO to pay attention to me.
So. It's just interesting because this continues and they continue to get away with it, and we've had government sanctions. We talked about that on the show, and the world governments and people all seem to be outraged. Yet this company continues to do business and still making money hand over fist. So
outrage doesn't shut stuff down.
That's true.
I hate to say it, but outrage doesn't. We've been outraged by many things for many years, and yet Congress still does what they do. And the outrage for the company, that's not going to change them. What's going to change them is the Israeli government doing something. And the reason I say that is because they're in Israel.
That's true.
Right? Like, unless the U.S. decides to be so outraged that they bomb that office complex.
Yeah.
And I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying.
Highly doubtful.
Yeah, I highly doubtful that's going to happen.
Israel is one of our closest allies, but
absolutely. I'm just saying that, like, we can complain about it. We can say, "Ooh, naughty." Santa's got you on the other list, right? That was a Christmas reference. But I personally find it funny to do Christmas references about companies based in Israel. But
So there's an
Happy holidays.
interesting paragraph in this article that talks about their financial viability now, right? Where
Mhm.
Moody's has downgraded, the company. So from an investor point of view and a financing point of view, looks like they're not going to be able to pay their loans. And could that shut them down?
That could. That could.
Possibly.
The other thing to think about that many people don't realize is it's not just investors and what have you that pay attention to that. It's also customers. I know that for Secure Ideas, we've had customers run credit checks on us before they sign contracts because they want to make sure that we are financially stable enough that we'll be able to complete the work they've asked us to do. And so, and I would imagine that for a group like NSO, where those are long-term projects. Those are long-term customers, right? They're not going after an activist for a week.
Yep.
They're, so I would imagine that would also cause
Mm-hmm.
some problems there.
Very good. So in our last fun story of the week, I think the most fun story that I've read in a while. Actually.
Absolutely. The most.
A Florida teen and her mother face potentially 16 years in prison for hacking the homecoming queen election so that the daughter would win the election. This was fascinating, not only because it was in Florida, but because nothing crazy like this would ever happen anywhere else but Florida.
Anywhere else, no.
But it's a very bizarre story. How this town that these two people are in they're obsessed with this homecoming queen. Like, it's a big deal for the city, like traditionally. And there's a lot of drama wrapped up in it. But essentially, how the hacking, and I would argue, is this really hacking? I'm not really sure, but the teacher had access to, who's the mother, had access to all these student ID numbers and birth dates, and basically logged in as these students through this app called Election Runner. And then they cast about 246 fake votes for the teen on the cell phone and the computer. And, one of the teachers was tipped off because I think that app had something in place that notify of like the same IP address, obviously voting multiple times with multiple IDs. So I don't know. Hacking?
First off, I'm not going to call it hacking. And the reason I'm not going to call it hacking is my understanding from reading this article and others. I've read,
there's a few.
I'm not going to say I've followed this story, but I've similar to it's interesting because it's in Florida. Many people have sent this story to me over the time frame that it's been happening with. Kevin, did you help them? Did you so right off the bat, and I'm going to base it on the assumption that what we read is true and they did do it. Because the one thing you left out that I think is hilarious is they are now claiming they were framed.
That's right.
Yes. Right. Like no, somebody else did this to get us in trouble because damn you, homecoming queen election. So the mom is a vice president.
Yes, that's right.
They didn't break into a system. The mom logged in.
Just logged in.
Yeah, logged in and viewed stuff. Now, she did say, the article does say, and other articles talk about that friends of the young girl have talked about that she has often bragged about knowing her mom's password and logging into the account to check. Oh, I saw your test score and I saw your absences, and which that's an interesting thing as a kid to want to look at. I never thought to myself, I wonder how many absences my friend has. That's never been something I thought I'd brag about. But so the mom had access, the daughter had access to the mom's account, which that's not uncommon for kids to know their parents' passwords or whatever. And then they just leveraged the information to answer the login information. Like hi, I'm Kevin and my phone number is this and I want to vote for so-and-so. Again, does that qualify for hacking? I think that one, this is a story because it's funny. People talk about it,
Yeah.
it's like, ha ha ha, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. I think the other part of it is something that maybe you guys don't understand from being up north, but this is a big damn deal in the South, right? Like
That was
there,
my point. Yeah.
yeah, there are generational homecoming queens, right? Like
Yeah.
like, oh, my mom was the homecoming queen, her mom was the homecoming queen, I have to be the homecoming queen, right? Like this is a big dang deal, and the vote, not
Yeah.
right, and so like this blows my mind. We have a vice principal that had access to data that used it to vote, and oh my gosh, we have 47 years in prison. And look, I'm a very firm believer that you don't cross the line, you don't do things you're not supposed to do, that hacking is bad in this type of
Yeah.
hacking, right? Because I'm waiting for Jason Street to quote me saying hacking is bad. Right? This kind of stuff is not the stuff you're supposed to do. But I also don't think, let me be very clear. I don't think we've fixed the rape issue in that area and the murder issue in
Yeah,
this
there could
area.
be more important
Maybe
issues for real. Yeah.
Yeah, if we're going to charge somebody and convict them for 17 or 18 years in
It's crazy.
jail for doing something, it probably should have been one of those worse crimes than I made my daughter the homecoming queen.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I almost look at this. This is unauthorized access, right? She obviously cheated the system by looking at, things that she had misused the access that she
Yeah.
had. But is it a 16-year prison sentence? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
I don't know.
But we'll have links to those articles.
Well, one of the reasons I say, and they say it in there, and this is something I actually just tweeted about this, about a completely different case just a few days ago, right? They use the phrases that drive me crazy, right?
Yep.
Well, we have to send a message. No, you don't have to send a message. Your job is to determine whether or not a crime has been committed, and if a crime is committed, whether to press charges, right? Do you have the evidence to press charges? And like this, well, the other parents were scared the data was accessed, so we have to show them that we're taking this seriously. No, that's not how you show them you're taking the data seriously. I've got an idea. How about not make all of that data available to a vice principal, because I don't think the vice principal needs to know my
I need to know
birthday.
access. Yep.
Yeah,
That's right. It all comes down to that.
How about we discuss the fact that the election runner application, which, oh my gosh, who made that a business model?
They're making money somehow.
Making money somehow, right?
Yep.
But let's talk about the fact that the election running application, okay, so a single IP address voted a whole bunch of times. I've got an idea. The library computer at my high school had the same IP address for every computer once it went through NAT to get to the internet. I don't know. This kind of stuff irritates me, because I'd like us to go take something serious. Not us, right? Like, we're not pressing charges on these idiots. I've got an idea. Here's a great way to punish this person. And I'm making an assumption. I've never seen a picture of this woman, but I know the stereotype of a woman or a family that is pushing their daughter to become the homecoming queen this way. Ban them from hairspray. There you go. You don't have to put her in jail for 16
There you go,
years.
folks.
Ban her from hairspray, because
That'll send a message.
That'll send a
Yes,
message.
That's
The
right.
people in the South that are pushing this hard for homecoming queen have big hair.
That's not
And
me.
on that
Yeah.
note, well, great stories this week, guys. Much appreciated with the commentary. Thank you, Kevin, for all your insights. And we, of course, will regroup
Thanks,
next
folks.
week.
Go and vote.
So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Go and vote. Where are we voting?
For your homecoming queen.
Oh, okay.
That's all for this week's show. Visit our website, sharedsecurity.net, for all previous episodes and to sign up for our email newsletter. Looking for Shared Security merch? Be sure to check out our online store at store.sharedsecurity.net. Don't forget, you can always find us on Twitter at SharedSec, and please hit that like and subscribe button below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week for another episode of the Shared Security Show.